Hello everyone, welcome back to another Kerbal Space Program video sponsored by Incogni, more on them a little bit later on. A couple of months ago, I filmed my first successful attempt at the Sarnus V challenge, which demands players of Kerbal Space Program to visit the Outer Planets mod planet Sarnus, analog of Saturn, visit all 5 of its moons, and return home in one piece, all in a single launch of course, and without mining. Now, when I plan out big videos like that, I sometimes ask AI for any suggestions of how to make the video more interesting, or, any bits of trivia or information I can discuss that I might not necessarily have thought of at the time, and when I asked it about the Sarnus V mission, it completely misunderstood what I was asking. But its interpretation of the question, what is the KSP Sarnus V challenge, was interesting. It said that the mission should involve sending a crewed mission to Sarnus with a Saturn V replica, and landing on one of the gas giant's more challenging moons, so Slate or Tekto. Ever since, that challenge idea has stuck with me as a potentially fun mission to try on this channel, and so that's what I decided to do this week: launch a replica of the Saturn V moon rocket, land on Slate, and then return home again. I picked Slate over Tekto because I've already done a dedicated Tekto mission video, and because, in my opinion, Slate is a more challenging destination to aim for, and I guess the masochist in me was drawn to that for some reason. Here I am on screen constructing the lander for this mission. It takes around 2,200 meters per second of delta V to land on Slate, and another 2,200 to return to low Slate orbit. So our total number needs to be 4,400 meters per second, which I rounded up to 4,500, just so we have a nice emergency budget in case we need to, avoid any mountains or craters or something like that. This means that the lander doesn't really look anything like the Apollo lander, as it needs to have multiple drop tanks in order to have the fuel required to conduct the trip to and from Slate orbit. At least if we want to stay a physically similar size to the Apollo lunar lander, though admittedly this is slightly taller. I did at least use the Apollo lunar lander command pod that comes with the Making History DLC though, so that's gotta count for something, right? Now, I actually did a very similar mission to this one back in 2019 when I built a Saturn V that could go to Tylo and back. I'll leave a link to that video in the description if you want to check it out. And since Tylo is more or less basically the same as Slate in terms of difficulty, the Apollo lander I used in that video is very similar to the one I used in this video. But now that has gone, I am constructing the Apollo command pod. Now, I wanted it to kind of be a similar sort of size to the Apollo command pod that went to the moon, which means our only option really is the nuclear engine. It's the only one that's going to be efficient enough to work with the limited amount of fuel we can use. And I still need to use a lot of fuel, as you can see. Unfortunately, I've had to make use of a little bit of part clipping. I hope it's not too egregious, because those tanks, they're all kind of separate tanks with tank walls that are basically just dead space. So if this was just one kind of singular piece tank without all these separate parts, the space that the tank walls occupied, does that kind of negate the part clipping? I don't know, but that's what I had to do here. Now, there's no way to avoid saying this. I massively over-engineered the Apollo command pod. I've basically printed out a delta V map of the outer planet system, and I used that to figure out how much delta V I would require to get to do this mission, basically. And I figured that I would need 7,000 meters per second of delta V to get to low Slate orbit, and I sort of figured I'd need about another 1,000 to get back to Kerbin, and I was way off. We have so much more extra fuel in that command pod that I almost thought about just scrapping the mission and redoing it again with a more sensible amount of fuel, but, what's done is done. And if anything, this completely negates the part clipping, right? Because we don't use anywhere close to the amount of fuel that we have in the Apollo command module stage. So if anything, I made things harder for myself, because it's going to be a lot harder for the Saturn V rocket to lift this payload to Kerbin orbit. So I used the stock alarm clock thing to calculate when to launch to get to Sarnus, rather than, just eyeballing things at the tracking station, because I don't actually know what the transfer window is from Kerbin to Sarnus. And with that, here we are at the launch pad with the rocket ready to launch. What on earth? It looks like someone's stolen the rocket. I must admit, my launch pad security has been a little lax lately, but one thing that is secure is my online data, because I use Incogni, who have sponsored today's video. And I'm not just saying that for the ad. Incogni is a service that I and my family all use because it genuinely keeps your data safe. There are these things called data brokers, companies that buy up your details from public records, social media, and even shopping habits. They then tie a neat bow on it all and sell it to whoever. Advertisers, corporations, and sometimes those with nefarious intentions. And if you live in the US, then people search sites take this even further. It is terrifyingly easy for anyone to find out your address, phone number, and even court records. Now, normally, in order to remove your data from these sites, you would need to individually contact all of them to make the request, but Incogni handles all of this for you, contacting over 230 data brokers on your behalf, handling the removal requests, objections, and follow-ups, and they continually repeat these requests, saving you literally hundreds of hours doing it yourself. And for any sites that aren't on the automated list, you can use Incogni's new custom removals tool that lets you request takedowns from additional places. Identity theft, online harassment, and financial fraud all start with stolen data, and that's why I use Incogni, and you should too. Click the link in the description and use my code MattLowne for 60% off their annual plan, so you can take control of your data before someone else does. Alright, yeah, let's just speed the footage up a little bit, because as you can see, this thing does not have the greatest of thrust-to-weight ratios. Admittedly, part of that is because it has a very, very heavy interplanetary transfer vehicle that has way more fuel than it really needs. Actually, in the vehicle assembly building, when I assembled this rocket, the first stage did not actually have sufficient thrust-to-weight ratio to get off the pad. I think it was like 0.8 was its thrust-to-weight ratio, so you might have noticed that not all of the tanks on the Saturn V are filled. I drained some of them just so that it was light enough, basically, so it could lift itself off the pad. And you said, look how relatively low we are, and we've already burned through more than half of the fuel levels in our first stage. So yeah, it's a heavy old thing, this thing. Now, luckily, the Saturn V is very OP in Kerbal Space Program. So obviously the Saturn V, as we all know, was the rocket that took humanity to the surface of the moon and back. In Kerbal Space Program, because Kerbal Space Program's like solar system is so much easier than the real solar system. Hey, someone should make a mod about that. Oh, we have a staging event. Love to see it. So yes, we've finished burning the first stage with its 5 F1 engines. We're now using, again, this stage doesn't have full fuel tanks, again, to keep the mass of the rocket down. And we have our 5 J2 engine stand-ins. I'm using the Skipper engine. I know the real this J2 engine in KSP is meant to be the Skiff, but that engine sucks, and we would not have had enough thrust-to-weight ratio to make it to space. So I've switched out the Skiff for the, what's it called again? The Skipper engine, and the next stage is powered by a single Skipper engine as well. But yeah, look at that. We're actually almost finished burning out this stage. Now, I get that my Saturn V is not really... It's a little bit taller than the actual Saturn V. I'm not the best, guys. I'm going to admit it. I'm not really the best at recreating stuff. If you'd like to know my reference that I used to build this, I didn't look at a reference image. Like, to the left of my desk is my Lego Saturn V. And I just intermittently just glanced to the left. I'm like, yeah, that looks about right. And then I built the next stage, looked over my Lego model. Like, yeah, it looks about proportionally okay. Thing is, I can't even see the whole, like, I'm going to put a picture on screen of my view of my Lego Saturn V as I was building this rocket. So, what I'm saying, guys, is that support the Patreon, because the effort I'm putting into these videos is clearly second to none. In all seriousness, though, if you are a Patreon member, or indeed a member of my YouTube channel, then you will have your own separate version of this video with no ads, and it will have a download link in the description if you want to have this this mutilated, weird Saturn V that I have built. If you didn't get that, then there's like links in this video's description to the Patreon member, but whatever. I don't like bringing it up too much because I don't want to like separate viewers based on disposable income, so I don't try to do too much plugging up the old Patreon and all that. But yes, I feel like I started a tangent earlier, by the way, that I then failed to finish because, you know, my mind just wanders, right? Yeah, the Saturn V in Kerbal Space Program is very, very powerful because you don't need that much fuel to get off the surface of Kerbin to the surface of the Mun and back again. The actual Saturn V that comes with the Making History DLC, so obviously you get the stock vessels you can just spawn in without building anything yourself. That Saturn V, it doesn't even have 3 stages to orbit. It's like the first stage, second stage, and then that's it. the rocket itself only has 2 stages, then you're on to like, you know, the Apollo command module and lunar lander and all that good stuff. So yeah, when you build a 3-stage Saturn V in Kerbal Space Program, you can go a lot further than just doing a moon landing, especially if you're doing what I'm doing here, where we've got a bit creative with the upper stage and swapped out things like, you know, we've used a little bit of part clipping, and we've used a nuclear engine, which is much more efficient than the is it the Wolfhound, you know, the stand-in for the Apollo command module's engine in real life that came with being history again. Yeah, so I don't know what there is to say about that. I always liked the idea of building a Saturn V and then taking it as far as possible. I've always loved those sorts of challenges in general. I guess that's why I really like the building SSTOs, because they always, you know, require a bit more efficiency than a staged rocket. Yeah, I did a challenge a couple of years ago where I used the stock Kerbal X vessel, which advertised itself, but you know, I get a Minmus, that's about it. I managed to take it all the way to Joule and landed it on 2 of Joule's moons. That was a really exciting mission to do. And I also did a mission in 2019, which is very, very, very similar to this video, where I built a Saturn V replica and landed on Tylo. And Tylo is extremely similar to Slate, which is where we're going now. Slate is harder to do a mission to compared to Tylo because Sarnus is so much further away from Kerbin than Joule, and Slate's terrain is much more treacherous. It's a lot more mountainous, a lot more deep craters. It's harder to find a safe landing spot, so yeah, but the actual process of going from low Slate orbit down to the surface and back again is very similar to the delta V levels required of Tylo. Tylo does take a little bit more delta V, I think, but not really, like, it's not significantly more, basically, that would make it significantly harder to design a lander for it. So the lander design that I'm using in this is actually quite similar to the lander I came up with for my Tylo Saturn V video, because why you can't improve upon perfection, right? And I really liked how that Tylo lander came out, and I was like, you know what, I would really like to do that again. And you know, 2019, I can't believe it, but it was 6 years ago, you know. I think, you know, my audience has shifted enough that people might not have seen that video at this point, so here we are. I probably should have been talking about literally anything happening on screen, shouldn't I? So we're kind of doing the escape burn from Kerbin to get to Sarnus over multiple burns, because we only have that single nuclear engine powering the entire vehicle, and the nuclear engine, kind of the trade-off for its efficiency is it has very, very poor thrust-weight ratio. So we want to be spending as much time at Kerbin periapsis as possible, because that makes the burn more efficient as per the O-berth effect. And so by splitting the burn into multiple burns, we're spending more time burning at Kerbin periapsis and therefore saving a bit of fuel. Although, as I said, I kind of calculated things wrong when doing this, and we have way more fuel than we need to do this mission, so yeah, you know, but it's good practice at least. So now I'm plotting the largest burn of them all, which is going to take us all the way to Sarnus's orbital height around the sun. It's not going to get us to encounter with Sarnus because Sarnus is at an inclined orbit, so we'll need to do a mid-course correction burn, but you know, that's pretty easy to do. Just there, I did a little tour of the living quarters. My hope was that I could do, like, Jeb could float through the docking ports and explore the lander as well to show the full living accommodation situation, but it was blocked, so I couldn't really do an IVA tour with the free IVA mod, but that was that. It does feel a little bit cruel, doesn't it? Just setting them in the Apollo-style command pod with just the lander can as the extra bit of room for multiple. This is going to be a long old mission for them. Like, it takes multiple years to do Sarnus trips because of just how far away from Kerbin it is. But you know, look how happy they are. They're smiling. Kerbals love being in space, so, you know, whatever. I recently have been trying to make more of an effort of building more realistic ships when it comes to interplanetary journeys. So, for example, I talked about my Sarnus V mission earlier in this video, well, as in at the very start of this video, and that kind of mission demands very, very hyper-efficient rocket design. But I decided to send a little space shuttle that would stay in Slate orbit whilst the rest of the mission happened, and the Kerbals, like, whizzed around the Sarnus system. There was a base of operations, and we could have constant communication with Kerbin so they can communicate, you know, try to make a little bit of an effort. I don't know, but this, I'm basically, you know, limited to the fact it had to fit the Saturn V profile. And yeah, the Saturn V wasn't perfect one-to-one because A, I ain't the best recreating stuff anyway, B, that was my view of my reference, and C, what was C? I don't know, something about it being taller than the real Saturn V. What I should have done was download an actual good Saturn V from, like, Kerbal X and then have it side by side in the vehicle assembly building, so I'm trying to match the proportions, but, well, you know, whatever. You live and you learn, I guess. I mean, at the end of the day, the Saturn V didn't just fly the Apollo missions, right? It also launched Skylab, and it was launched in a different configuration to the Apollo mission, so it looked different. So I think it stands to reason that if humanity were to send a mission to Ganymede or, wherever, with a Saturn V, they would probably make some changes to it, so it wouldn't look exactly the same as it did when it was just launching people to the moon. So, I don't know, I'm not going to feel too guilty about making some minor changes here and there, or, some major changes. One thing I kind of was annoyed about that I forgot to add the little fins at the bottom. So, like, making history, it comes with that little engine adapter for the 5 F1s at the bottom, but it doesn't have the little fin pieces on the Saturn V, where the Saturn V did have fins there. You can add the fins using the fin part. I just forgot, and I completely didn't think about this until I was editing the footage afterwards, and I was like, oh yeah, that would have been good, I guess. Although, again, thinking about how this would have played out in reality, as if that would have ever been something we would consider, they actually were planning, if the Saturn V were to continue flying, or, derivatives of the Saturn V were going to continue flying, they would have just scrapped the fins, because it was found they didn't really do anything, or, the effect they had was minimal on the rocket's performance. I mean, look at Starship, there's no fins at the bottom of that. Arguably, it's a completely different rocket design, but whatever. So here we are. Time War. Let's look back at the screen and climb out of this pit that I have somehow immersed myself in. We are performing our mid-course correction burn so we can get an encounter. Well, we're getting a nice close pass of Sarnus and indeed Slate, which is the moon that we're going to. Now, I could have probably made things more... I didn't really try it out, so maybe I couldn't, but I could have maybe got things a little bit more efficient by doing a gravity assist with Slate to sling us into a Sarnus orbit, and then getting a second Slate encounter, so that basically it would have been a cheaper burn to circularize at Slate. But I was aware at this point, we've got over half of our fuel left, and my calculations, my incorrect calculations, I should say, did not predict this. I was like, my calculations are probably not correct, and I've probably brought way too much fuel. So I'm like, let's not try and do things super efficiently then. We'll just try and use as much of the fuel as possible so I don't look like I designed things wrong on video. And from all my groveling so far, that was not a successful attempt. But moving on, as you can see, ready, wait for it, it's coming up. There we are. We have entered Sarnus's sphere of influence. It is currently nowhere to be seen on the game screen because it's so far away. Like, Sarnus is massive, so there's a huge gravity well, so its sphere of influence is very big. We're on the very edge of it, so we can't see it yet, but as we time warp down, that little orange ball starts to materialize, as are its 5 moons swinging around. And there's Slate. We're about to encounter it. Sarnus V, by the way, really, really fun challenge. I think that's one of the most fun things I've done this year so far in Kerbal Space Program. If you want to try and do the Joule 5, but you're finding it a little bit tricky, Sarnus V is a lot more forgiving. Like, yeah, it's still hard, but it is easier than the Joule 5, in my opinion. The biggest challenge with Sarnus, really, is getting to Sarnus. After that, it's not really a thing. Like, you kind of have to really think hard about Slate and Tekto, but the other moons, it's Elu, Hale and Ovok, I think. I don't know, the egg one. They're all quite easy to land on. So yeah, Slate and Tekto are the ones you have to be figured. But compared to, like, Tylo is more difficult than Slate in terms of Delta V, even though I do think Slate is a more challenging moon overall. And I think Lathe is a lot harder than Tekto. I don't know, maybe I'm just weird, but that's my thoughts on the Sarnus V versus the Joule 5. But both are very immensely satisfying missions to pull off, so would recommend if you're kind of facing, I don't know, writer's block is the right word, but facing a bit of creative drought. I don't know, because Kerbal Space Program, it's kind of limited by imagination in a lot of ways. I should have mentioned this earlier in the video because I know I've already probably got lots of comments under this video talking about it. I'm aware of, like, planet packs. I'm playing with a planet pack, right? This is Outer Planets. It's a mod. So this isn't part of stock KSP. A lot of people are asking me to play that mod that begins with K that I've forgotten, but it's the Black Hole mod. I know about that one. I've bookmarked it. And also the recently released Promised Worlds solar system, which basically adds the Deb system, which was to Kerbal Space Program. So in KSP 2, there was going to be a second star system called the Deb system, and we have kind of pictures of and stuff like that. And obviously that's all gone now, but a dedicated team of modders has used a combination of data mining and scrolling through all the videos and media shared by the KSP dev team, and they've built the Deb system for KSP1, and it's not a system replacer, so that when you kind of fire up the game, you're doing the dev system. You start in the Kerbal system, aka this solar system, and you have to travel to the dev system. It's not like you plot a maneuver and burn there. You go through this, like, my understanding, at least, I've not played it yet, my understanding is there's like a wormhole that you have to traverse through, like Interstellar, but as in like the film Interstellar. And that takes you to the dev system. Now, I was planning on playing it this very week. However, I was talking to the developers of what's it called? Promised Worlds, because, you know, I'm aware that I kind of have a big platform in terms of Kerbal Space Program, so I feel like I have an ethical responsibility to not misrepresent mods and things. So I said, look, is there a place I should go in the dev system? Is there anything I should know or let the viewers know about before I get something wrong? I know this probably sounds rich, because you're like, oh, Matt gets things wrong all the time. And imagine if I didn't do this at all. How much misinformation I would have spread about KSP mods at this stage. So yeah, I was like, where do you recommend I go? What would be a good place to showcase things like that? I did the same with Kitten Space Agency. I made a video about that recently. I actually just messaged Dean Hall saying, you know, is there anything you tell me about that I wouldn't be able to figure out myself, or any places you recommend I go? I'd like to try and do this a lot when it's like a big thing that people want to see, basically. And the developers said, yeah, you can go XYZ. I'm not going to spoil it for you guys, but they also said that there's kind of a bit of a bug with the wormhole at the moment. They didn't elaborate on what this bug was, so I don't know how serious it is, but they said we'd recommend you wait until this is patched out before showcasing the mod. So apparently that fix is coming very soon, and I am now in with the devs. They can send me like early access releases before they release it publicly, so I can get the fixes potentially a little bit faster. So hopefully maybe next week or the week after. I definitely do want to do a Promised Worlds look at, though. So there you go, that's something to look forward to. And then the black hole system begins with K, I don't remember what. I will also look into that as well. Oh my gosh, looking back at the screen, we have now circularized in low Slate orbit, and we are commencing our landing sequence. So yeah, always want to be good at talking about what's happening on screen. Although I guess, you know, I've been doing this for like 10 years now. You guys have heard me talk about Kerbal Space Program, right? I feel like at a certain point, the gameplay sort of does the talking formula. You can just see me executing things, and, you know, I will only talk about stuff if it's relevant. Like the stage that we need to stage in a second. There's a little bit of park clipping. I think either the ladder or one of the landing legs is kind of clipped into the fuel tanks we need to detach. So I'm going to do like a little spin maneuver to detach those radial tanks. Ready? Watch this. Oh. Well, clearly I misremembered. This was not, in my defense, this wasn't my first landing attempt. This is like my 4th or 5th landing attempt. The first couple, I ended up crashing. I didn't slow down in time, or I ended up landing on the slope of some mountain and the lander wouldn't stay still. So I feel like for those ones, I spanned the craft. Maybe I just felt like living dangerously for this particular attempt, but yeah, how embarrassing. Do I spin for this staging event? I'm pretty sure I don't. No. Oh well, but that staging event has revealed 2 of the landing legs, which were clipped inside the lander earlier. Then the other 2 landing legs are on the kind of final peripheral tank that will stage upon Slate liftoff, or shortly after Slate liftoff. So just coming across this crater now, we are now going relatively slowly, below Mach 1 if we were at sea level on Kerbin, so very, very close to completing our landing burns. There you go, landing legs hath been deployed. Coming down very, very gradually. Jebediah Kerman and Bob coming there. Very, very anxious at this stage. But yeah. Oh my gosh, guys. I'm so excited. Oh, getting ahead of myself, actually. But whatever. I'm so excited. Guys, I remembered. I finally remembered. I remembered to bring EVA science experiments with me. I've been saying for the past few videos, like, I got to the planet or moon or whatever. I was like, I forgot to bring the EVA experiments. And I didn't this time. So we get to do that. So look forward to that. And now we have, of course, landed. Kind of a heavy touchdown at the end just there, but yeah, look at that. I mean, that's the thing with Slate and what's the other one called? Tylo. They're basically like miniature, well, not even miniature Kerbins. They're basically like Kerbin, but with no atmosphere. So obviously Kerbin's very easy to land on because you can use parachutes. Imagine if Kerbin had no atmosphere, how hard it would be. It's like taking off from Kerbin, but backwards. You know, that's a scientific way of explaining things. So yeah, it takes a huge amount of delta V. Now here we are on the surface of Slate. And I'm here time warping to see if we can get a nice shot with Sarnus on the horizon behind the craft. You know, potential good thumbnail shot. But I was like, I can't find it. Are we tidally locked to Sarnus maybe? But no, we're not. So that's basically what I was doing here. If you guys are wondering, like, why is Matt just like time warping and moving the camera around erratically? That's what I was doing there. I mean, I'll probably just like, I don't know, Photoshop Sarnus into the thumbnail or clickbait. I feel like, you know, it's pretty descriptive. You know, gotta have that nice catchy thumbnail. And yeah, I'm one of these YouTubers. You know, you guys seen The Escapist and Linus Tech Tips and Red Letter Media. Lots of others have been saying that views have been down on videos. I too have been experiencing this. I assumed it's because like schools are going back, so people aren't watching videos, even though my demographic is not school-aged kids, so I don't know what's happening there. But I always generally found that around this time every year, views tend to go down, and then they start picking up around October, November. But yeah, my views have been like well down for the past couple of videos. Like they've been getting like 30 to 40,000 views, and that's like it. Whereas, okay, and I admit there are lots of people out there that would love 30 to 40,000 views. I'm not, you know, I'm aware I'm coming from a place of privilege, but yeah, views have been weirdly down. So maybe this will like, maybe people will want to watch this video, or YouTube will want to show this video to someone. I'm not sure, but yeah, it's a bit of a worry. I've already had sponsors cancelling things. They're like, this video is not getting any views, and I'm like, I know, I don't get it either. But you know, whatever. This is a cross for me to bear, so don't worry. Oh, here we are doing the EVA experiment. Wow. Banana smashed. How cool was that? So yeah, I'm for the first time in a while. And the last time this happened was when I had all that copyright shenanigans back in 2019. For the first time in a while, I'm like, I don't know if my channel is really sustainable if the views don't pick back up. So we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, if you do want to join the Patreon or sign up to the membership program, it is always really appreciated, guys. So the links are down below. But there we are. We've planted the Lowne aerospace flag. We can come up with a catchy and memorable name. Slate by Saturn V seemed like a good choice. And yeah, we can just sort of run around, have a fun old time on the side. We can do an EVA report. We didn't really get any science because this is not the first time I've been to Slate on this save file. Yes, I'm not in the Lowne Aerospace 3 save file. I'm in a different save file. The save file in which I did the Outer Planets, what's the planet called? Sarnus. The Sarnus V challenge. This is that save file. And I think I've managed to somehow land in the exact same biome I landed in when I did the Slate landing in my Sarnus V video. So that's why we didn't really get much science. Yeah, here we are. Here's the inside of that lander cad. I very, very rarely use this command pod, this Apollo Lunar Lander style command pod, because honestly, it's just a bit rubbish. It's quite heavy for what it is. It has very, I don't even know if it has SAS, and if it does, it's very, very weak, because the intention is you use those RCS thrusters, but I don't like using RCS thrusters. I want to use the reaction wheel. So I kind of put a reaction wheel on this craft to kind of give it a bit more gimbal. But yeah, it's just a bit heavy. I don't really need the monopropellant and the RCS thrusters that it has. And, don't know, just don't like it. And I feel like it's like one of the most underused command pods in this game. Like, everyone loves the little 3-seat Soyuz style one. I forgot what it's called. It's called like the Onion or the Pea or something like that, but it's the Soyuz one, basically. The 3-seat one. That one's great because it's a really small profile, but it can fit 3 Kerbals in it. Obviously, the classics, Mark 1 and Mark 3, you know, command pods are great. And then no one really uses this one. Everyone uses kind of the 2, including myself, by the way. Everyone uses like the 2-seat command pod that can like switch between rover and circle mode, you know, lander can mode. No one really uses this one. I feel like the Gemini one is quite an underused one as well, because the Gemini is this really awkward size. It's like, what is it, 1.875 meter diameter or something. It's kind of between the Mark 1 and Mark 2 diameter fuselages. So yeah, it's a bit of an awkward size. I did use it relatively recently in a video whose name I do not recall. I don't remember when I used it. I just remember a few weeks ago being like, I could use this command pod because I don't really use it ever. So yeah, just that's that. Now, I said earlier that we would need kind of 4,400 meters per second of delta V to kind of go down from low Slate orbit down to the surface and then back again. But, you know, we've still got 785 meters per second left, and this burn to rendezvous with the mothership is only going to cost us about 250 meters per second. So maybe my delta V map that I printed out is inaccurate, or it's very, very underestimates or overestimates. You know, it's too warm for me to think clearly like how efficient your flying is going to be. I'm not sure. But yeah, here you are seeing me take 10 million years trying to get an encounter with, or I guess a close encounter with the mothership. There we are. 0.5 kilometers. That's pretty good. 500 meters. We can eyeball it from there. So now we're just going to point towards the maneuver node vector on the nav ball and time warp 2, well, we're going to do too much time warping, right? Because here we go, 3, 2, 1, and there we are. Yeah, the aerospike engine, of course, necessary to provide us enough thrust-weight ratio to counteract the massive surface gravity of Slate. I very optimistically started designing this lander with the Terrier engine before realizing, actually, I think the Terrier engine might be a bit weak for this. So I switched it out for the aerospike, which is generally my go-to engine for kind of the kind of celestial bodies with high surface gravities. Not necessarily because it's the best for the job, but it's just because it has a really, really small profile, so it's really easy to get landing legs that extend beyond it. So the exact polar opposite would be the nuclear engine is a nightmare for designing landers because it's so long, none of the stock landing legs extend low enough to clear the engine bell. So you kind of have to get a bit creative by building sort of fuselage pieces that go further down around the engines. It's a fun old little challenge, but sometimes you just want some simplicity, especially when I'm trying to make the lander as compact as possible to fit the profile of the Apollo lander. So yeah, it was not, well, I was about to say it was a single stage. It wasn't a single stage, but it was a single engine lander. So we don't have like a second stage that launches from the surface, leaving the kind of remains of the lander on the surface. We already had that really complicated, like, octopus, asparagus engine, drop tank system. I didn't really want to have to faff around trying to build some clever system of having the launch from Slate surface, like, leave the lander. Gosh, it's really difficult talking, you know. It's a shame that it's my job to do so, but you know. So now we have docked. Our space frogs have been reunited. I've transferred some liquid fuel from the lander onto the mothership because it felt like we would need it, right? We've only got a mere, well, I can't even see now because Jebediah Kerman has decided to do an EVA. We can take the science from the lander can, I guess. Don't really need to. You know, we have the tech tree fully unlocked, but, you know, I guess it's good practice. Yeah, 4,546 meters per second of delta V remaining. I had budgeted 1,000. I was like, oh, we probably only need 1,000 to get back to Kerbin. I guess we can see if those mathematics holds true. Let's have a little look. We can make a maneuver node in just a second. Here we are. The Dragon prograde. Oh, yeah, wow. Okay, so actually we probably needed more than 1,000 meters per second of delta V. Oh, actually, no, our Parallax is currently in the sun. So maybe, I guess 1,000. I'm going to take some notes of this. Next time I do a Sarnus mission, we need maybe slightly more than 1,000 to get back to Kerbin. Let's see. There's a Parallax is now Eve's height now. So, okay, 135-ish, you know. So, I guess maybe 1,200 would be a good minimum delta V to have when leaving the Sarnus system. There we are. 1,054.9 meters per second gives us an encounter with the Kerbin system. Obviously not getting us an encounter with Kerbin's atmosphere where we can capture and indeed land, but this is a good start. And again, big old long burn, so yeah, actually I have no intelligent commentary to add other than just a big old long burn, I guess. But yeah, you know, it's good to be back in the save profile that my KSP install that has my Outer Planets mod installed, because yeah, I do like the Outer Planets mod. It's really, really good. I really, really want to do videos visiting the other two gas giants. Well, I guess they're not gas giants, they're ice giants. There's a Neptune, I'm not going to remember their names. There's a Neptune analog and a Uranus analog, and the Uranus analog has this really cool like canyon. So one of my more popular videos on this channel that I actually recreated recently with better graphics mods was my Joule diver. So I basically got this big space station type thing that dived into the atmosphere of Joule and would emerge with lots of science gathered. I want to do that again for the Uranus planet ice giant, because it has this big canyon like within the clouds. It looked really awesome from some screenshots I saw that someone sent me. So yeah, definitely want to do that, and I'll do the Needon video. And there's a potential Blunderbirds collaboration potentially happening if I remember to email this person. Some people might know what I'm talking about here. that I might do, but these are all plans for Outer Planets. But after that, I might be kind of Outer Planets out for a bit. Like now I've done dedicated missions to all of the planets. I've already done one to Plock, is it? You know, the Pluto analog of Outer Planets. I've already done a video there. I've done loads of Sarnus ones at this point because, yeah, let's be real, Sarnus is the best one, isn't it? And yeah, now I actually need to do Neptune and Uranus. Oh, I've got a note written in front of me to talk about this specifically when it happens in the video. And it happened, I was talking about rubbish things, probably. But you might have noticed a maneuver node suddenly appeared, like all planned and plotted, and then I just time warped and deleted it. Basically, I tried to make a maneuver node to kind of fine-tune our Kerbin encounter, and I couldn't manage it. Like, it was basically, I was clicking on my orbital line, plotting the maneuver node, but it was plotting it, like, on the second pass around the sun, so like in 11 years' time, and I couldn't for the life of me click it in a way that it would make it for my current orbit around the sun, if that makes sense. So I just deleted that maneuver node and just did it by eye, basically. That's why I did those manual burns. Just there to get our Kerbin encounter. So just in case you were confused about what I was doing, that is my explanation. I know it's not as helpful to have it retrospectively told to you, but that's what was happening there. And look, there is the blue marble below us. Home is there. 14 years, 115 days after lifting off. And of course, you know me, I like to celebrate the arrival of the Kerbals with a firework display in the name of a very, very dangerous last-minute staging event, which actually I left way too late because I couldn't find the undock button on the little menu for the docking port. So there we are. So very, very close proximity, very, very safe. Don't worry, guys. Yeah, it's ridiculous, isn't it? The explosions. I recently watched the Phoenician scheme, the Wes Anderson film, and it's just, I love that quote. I myself feel very safe. So he always says that prior to something usually going horribly wrong. Very good film, by the way. Highly recommend. Now, there we are. The parachutes have deployed. So this video is coming to a close. Let's just speed the footage up a little bit because it's taking, watching things in parachutes descent is kind of boring. And look at this. I don't think I've ever been in this biome before. Where are we? The ice cap. Okay, well, I've been to this biome before, obviously, but I don't think I've ever really landed at the ice caps like this. Like, I didn't recognize any of those trees, which I believe are part of the Parallax mod by Lynx. So yeah, I was like, are they meant to be like stand-in for Christmas trees? Like, I know they're not Christmas trees, but, they kind of look that way, don't they? So I thought, you know what? Well, just now that we've landed, Jebediah come and get out, stretch his legs, and we can have a little exam of that tree. So we're going to go on EVA and have a little look at it. So this is where we are on the map screen. Let's get out and have a ganders. And whilst Jebediah is waddling his way over there at lightning speed, just got a quick reminder, guys, that this video was sponsored by Incogni. I really do genuinely recommend their services. Like, it's scary how much I get the reports every month, and it's crazy how much they've deleted of me from databases, and they've supported me for a long time now at this point. So yeah, I really like Incogni. Use my code MattLowne at the link below to get 60% off an annual plan. And of course, big thank you to the names on screen as well. They're of course my Patreon supporters and YouTube channel members. So very, very grateful if your name is there. Thank you so much for your onward support. But that is the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed the journey, and I will see you in the next one, whenever or wherever that may be. Well, it will be here. It won't be like anywhere